$1. That's all he left. Graham Bainbridge, the billionaire who could buy and sell countries, insulted her with a single crumpled bill on a $1,100 check. He thought he knew her. Another nameless face in his gilded world. He wanted to humiliate her. He had no idea. Rage, hot and sharp, coiled in Amelia's gut. Years of quiet kindness, of holding it together, were about to explode. 5 words. That's all it took. 5 words that would cost her everything. Or so he thought. He'd soon learn that underestimating a waitress was a very expensive mistake. What he didn't know, she was about to expose a secret that would shatter his empire. The polished marble floor of the azure room was cold, but Amelia's feet were burning. She'd been on them for 11 straight hours, the thin soles of her regulation black shoes worn down to nothing. Every step was a careful calculation, balancing a heavy tray of sparkling water while navigating a sea of New York's elite. The air smelled of truffle oil, seared scallops, and the faint, expensive perfume of the women who dined there. The azure room wasn't just a restaurant, it was a stage, and Amelia was one of the invisible stagehands. Her manager, Mr. Henderson, a man whose smile never quite reached his eyes, glided past. "Table 9 is asking for you, Amelia, and smile. You look like you just lost a winning lottery ticket." Amelia forced the corners of her mouth up. "Right away, Mr. Henderson." She had lost, though. Every day felt like losing. She wasn't just a waitress. She was a 24-year-old woman trapped in a cycle of debt and despair. Every dollar she earned, every meager tip, went into a dwindling fund. A fund earmarked for her younger brother, Leo. Leo, who was currently 80 blocks south at NYU Langone Hospital, his lungs struggling against the relentless grip of cystic fibrosis. He needed a specialized transplant, a procedure with a price tag that looked like the annual budget of a small country. So Amelia smiled. She smiled at the hedge fund managers discussing their short positions and at the socialites picking at their salads. She smiled until her face ached. At 9:00 p.m., the atmosphere in the restaurant shifted. The ambient sound hushed, then rose in a wave of whispers. Mr. Henderson was at the door, bowing so low he almost touched the floor. "Mr. Bainbridge, what an honor. Your usual table is ready." Amelia's friend and fellow waiter, Ben, leaned in as he passed her at the service station. "That's him," Ben muttered. "Graham Bainbridge." Amelia knew the name. Everyone in New York did. Bainbridge Capital had its headquarters 40 stories above them, a glass and steel monolith that cast a shadow over half of Midtown. He was a titan of industry, a man who appeared on the cover of Forbes and the Wall Street Journal with headlines that called him the Shark of Silicon Alley or the $1 Trillion Man. He was infamous, ruthless, and, according to restaurant law, a notoriously terrible tipper. "He's in your section," Ben added, wincing. "Good luck." A cold dread settled in Amelia's stomach. This was the man who could, with a single check, fund Leo's entire surgery and not even notice the expense. Bainbridge was led to table 12, the prime corner booth with a sweeping view of Central Park. He was alone. He wore a simple dark grey suit that probably cost more than Amelia's apartment. He didn't look up from his phone as he sat. "Good evening, sir. My name is Amelia, and I'll be your server," she said, her voice practiced and smooth. He waved a hand, a gesture of pure dismissal. Water, no ice, and the steak Diane, rare, a bottle of the '98 Chateau Margaux. He didn't make eye contact. He didn't open the menu. He ordered a $500 bottle of wine and a $150 steak like he was ordering a cup of coffee. "Right away, sir," Amelia said. The next hour was agony. Amelia provided flawless service. She decanted the wine with a steady hand. She presented the steak, which was flambéed tableside. She refilled his water glass before it was ever empty. Through it all, Bainbridge never looked at her. His attention was riveted to his phone, his thumb scrolling in sharp, angry movements. He took phone calls at the table, his voice a low, cutting monotone. "No, the deal is dead," he snapped into his device. "Liquidate the assets. I don't care about the optics." Amelia felt a chill. He was destroying someone's company, someone's livelihood between bites of his steak. She was invisible. She wasn't a person. She was a function, a pair of hands that brought him things. Finally, he was done. He pushed his plate away, a good portion of the expensive meal uneaten. He signaled for the check with another sharp, impatient gesture. Amelia printed the bill. The total came to $1,245.50. She placed the leather-bound check holder on his table. "Thank you for dining with us, Mr. Bainbridge. I can take this whenever you're ready." He didn't acknowledge her. He simply pulled a sleek black card from his wallet, the mythical American Express Centurion card, the black card reserved for the world's wealthiest, and dropped it onto the tray. Amelia ran the card and returned with the slip for him to sign. She stood a few feet away, her heart hammering. This was it. Even a standard 15% tip would be nearly $190. That was a week's worth of groceries. It was one of Leo's copays. A 20% tip, standard for this level of dining, would be almost $250. He scribbled a line on the tip line and another for the total. He pushed the folder to the edge of the table, stood up, and walked out of the restaurant without a backward glance. He didn't even take his copy of the receipt. Amelia waited a respectful 30 seconds before approaching the table. She opened the folder, her breath caught in her throat. She stared. She blinked, sure her exhausted eyes were deceiving her. The tip line was not blank, it was filled in. $1.00. The total line read $1,146.50. He had added a single dollar. A wave of icy numbness washed over Amelia. It wasn't just a bad tip, it was a message. It was a deliberate act of contempt. He had looked at her service, at her personhood, and valued it at 100 pennies. The humiliation was so profound, it was physical. It felt like a slap. Her eyes burned. She thought of Leo. She thought of the 11-hour shift. She thought of the fake smile she had worn. From across the room, she saw Mr. Henderson watching her, his eyes flicking to the check folder. He was already calculating the restaurant's cut. He saw her expression and started to walk over, his face darkening. He hated drama. Amelia looked at the $1 tip. She looked at Bainbridge's signature, and then she looked at the door, where the billionaire was just stepping into the cool night air, his driver holding open the door of a black Rolls-Royce. Something inside her, something that had been bent and bruised for months, finally snapped. She was not a function. She was not invisible. Clutching the check folder, she walked past a stunned Mr. Henderson. "Amelia, where are you going?" he hissed. She didn't answer. She pushed through the heavy glass door of the azure room and stepped out onto the sidewalk. The city lights were a blur. "Mr. Bainbridge," she called out, her voice louder than she intended. The billionaire paused, one foot inside his car. He turned slowly, his expression one of pure, cold annoyance. This was the first time he had truly looked at her all night. Amelia walked right up to him, her hands shaking, her blood roaring in her ears. She held out the leather folder. "Sir," she said, her voice trembling but clear, "you forgot something." Graham Bainbridge's eyes, the color of slate, narrowed. They were the coldest eyes Amelia had ever seen. He looked at her, then at the check folder she was holding out, as if she were a piece of trash that had blown against his leg. "I paid my bill," he stated. It wasn't a question. It was a fact. "You did," Amelia agreed, her voice gaining strength. "But I cannot accept this." She opened the folder and took out the merchant copy of the receipt. She then reached into her apron pocket, her fingers fumbling past a wine key and a handful of change, and pulled out a single crumpled dollar bill of her own, one she had earned from a kinder table earlier. She tucked Bainbridge's signed receipt back into the folder and placed her own $1 bill on top of it. "You added $1 to the check," she said, her voice low but piercing the city noise. "I don't know if that was a mistake or a message, but my service is worth more than $1, or it's worth nothing at all. I won't be insulted. So please, take this back." She held the dollar out to him. The driver looked horrified. Mr. Henderson, who had rushed out of the restaurant, was frozen on the top step, his face pale. Bainbridge did not move. He simply stared at her. The air crackled. This was a man who moved markets, who crushed competitors before breakfast. No one spoke to him this way. Amelia could feel her career dissolving. She was finished. She'd be blacklisted from every fine dining establishment in the city. He finally spoke. "You're refusing my tip?" "I am," Amelia said. "I would rather have nothing. Your meal was $1,045.50. This dollar makes it an insult. Keep it." She was shaking so hard she could barely stand, but she met his gaze. She saw a flicker of something behind the ice. It wasn't anger, it was surprise. It was the look of a chess master who just saw a pawn make an unexpected move. He slowly reached out, his fingers brushing hers as he took the dollar bill. He didn't look at it. He just kept his eyes locked on hers. "You're fired, Amelia," Henderson shouted, finally finding his voice and running down the steps. "Get away from him. I am so sorry, Mr. Bainbridge, sir. So sorry. She's new. She's unstable." "Shut up, Henderson," Bainbridge said, his voice quiet, but it cut through Henderson's panic like a razor. The manager's mouth snapped closed. Bainbridge turned his full attention back to Amelia. "You'd rather have nothing," he repeated, less a question than a statement. "You'd risk your job over your… what? Pride?" "Over my dignity, sir," Amelia corrected him. "It's all I have left." A silence stretched for a full 10 seconds. A cab honked. Bainbridge's driver cleared his throat. Then the billionaire did something Amelia never expected. The corner of his mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but an acknowledgement. He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a slim silver card case. He extracted a single business card, as black and severe as his credit card. He held it out to her. "Bainbridge Capital, 30 Rockefeller Plaza. My office is on the 65th floor," he said. "Be there tomorrow, 9 a.m. Don't be late." Amelia stared at the card. I don't understand." "Am I?" "You're fired," Henderson spat, his face red with fury. "You are most definitely fired." "You're fired from this place," Bainbridge said, ignoring Henderson completely. He gestured to the azure room with a flick of his head. "And from what I've seen, that's a blessing." He got into the Rolls-Royce. The driver shut the door, and the car pulled silently into the stream of traffic, disappearing. Amelia was left on the sidewalk, holding a business card. The weight of what she'd done crashed down on her. She'd lost her job, her only source of income. "You're finished." Henderson was practically screaming, his face inches from hers. "Give me your apron. You are not welcome here. You just cost this restaurant its most important client. You're selfish. You're reckless." Amelia didn't say a word. She untied her apron, the one stained with wine and sauce, the one that smelled of her 11-hour shift, and handed it to him. She turned and walked away, her mind a total blank. She had no job. She had no money. Leo's bills were on her counter at home. She walked 40 blocks back to her tiny walk-up apartment in Hell's Kitchen. She didn't have the money for a subway ride, not really. She collapsed onto her bed, the black business card clutched in her hand. It felt impossibly heavy. Graham Bainbridge, chairman and CEO. Was it a prank? A cruel joke? Was he going to have her arrested for harassment when she showed up? She looked at the small framed photo on her nightstand. It was her and Leo last summer, before he'd gotten so much worse. He was smiling. She had nothing left to lose. She set her alarm for 7 a.m. The next morning, Amelia stood in the lobby of 30 Rockefeller Plaza. The cavernous Art Deco space was designed to make people feel small, and it was working. Men and women in tailored suits, carrying expensive leather briefcases, clicked across the marble floor with a purpose Amelia had only ever seen in movies. She was wearing her only presentable outfit, a pair of black slacks, a simple white blouse, and her worn-out flats. She had $42.50 in her bank account. She approached the security desk, her voice small. I have a meeting with Graham Bainbridge." The security guard, a large man who looked like he'd been a linebacker, didn't even look up. "Name?" Amelia Kelly." He typed. His eyebrows shot up. He looked at her, really looked at her, taking in her cheap clothes and nervous energy. "Ms. Kelly, right this way. You'll need a temporary security badge." He processed her ID and handed her a pass. "Take the express elevator on your right. It doesn't stop until the 60th floor. From there, you'll transfer to a private elevator for Mr. Bainbridge's office." The express elevator was silent and terrifyingly fast. Her ears popped. She stepped out onto the 60th floor, which was another, more exclusive lobby. A severe-looking woman with a headset sat at a vast, empty desk. "Amelia Kelly for Mr. Bainbridge," Amelia said. "He's expecting you." The woman pointed to a set of unmarked silver doors. "He will meet you on 65. The private elevator was just for him. The walls were lined in dark, polished wood. When the doors opened, Amelia wasn't in a reception area. She was in an office. It was the size of her entire apartment building. One wall was a solid pane of glass, offering a staggering, godlike view of Central Park, so high up that the trees looked like a green carpet and the cars were tiny insects. The desk was a slab of black marble. The only thing on it was a single humming computer monitor. Graham Bainbridge was standing at the window, his back to her. "You're punctual," he said, his voice echoing slightly in the huge room. "That's one good sign." He turned. Today he wore a crisp blue shirt, no tie. He looked younger, but no less intimidating. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing to one of two simple, elegant chairs opposite his desk. Amelia sat. Her hands were folded so tightly in her lap, her knuckles were white. "Do you know why you're here, Amelia?" "No, sir, I assume to apologize for last night. But I stand by what I said." His mouth twitched again. "No, you're not here to apologize. You're here because you're the first person in nearly a decade to tell me no. The first person to risk their own well-being for a principle. My world, Amelia, is filled with yes men. They smile, they nod, they agree, and all the while they are sticking knives in my back." He walked over and sat in his chair, leaning forward. "I have a problem. A big one. Bainbridge Capital is in the middle of a hostile takeover of a rival tech firm, AstraTech. It's $1 billion deal. And someone inside my inner circle is leaking my strategies to them. Every move I make, they anticipate. It's costing me hundreds of millions. It's not one of the vipers on Wall Street, it's someone on this floor." Amelia was stunned. Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Bainbridge said, "you are invisible. You've spent years being invisible. You've survived by observing, by listening to conversations you're not supposed to hear, by noticing the details no one else does. The man who takes his coffee with 2 sugars, but today only takes 1. The woman who's smiling, but her eyes are terrified. That's what you do. That's what a good waitress does. I'm not a bad tipper, Amelia. I'm a student of human nature. That dollar was a test." "A test?" Amelia felt a flash of her anger from last night. "That was a cruel test, Mr. Bainbridge." "It was an effective one," he countered, unfazed. "It showed me you can't be bought, at least not cheaply. It showed me you have a spine. I am surrounded by people who can be bought. Now I need to find out who." He stood up and walked back to the window. "I'm offering you a job. Not as a waitress. You'll be my new executive assistant, a temporary contract. I don't know anything about finance, sir. I'm not qualified." "You're not supposed to be." He turned back to her. "The person you're replacing, she's on leave. The mole thinks her absence is their opportunity. They think you're a naive, stupid girl who I'm entertaining. They will underestimate you, and while they're underestimating you, you will watch them. You'll handle my calls, my schedule, my files, and you will find the leak. This was insane. This was corporate espionage. This was something out of a thriller." "I can't," Amelia said, standing up. I'm just a waitress. I have problems. Real-world problems. I need a job, yes, but I need a real job, not this." Bainbridge held up a hand. "I know about your brother, Leo." Amelia froze. Her blood ran cold. "What?" "Leo Kelly. Cystic fibrosis. He's on the transplant list at NYU Langone, but his high antibody count makes him a difficult match. The experimental protocol he needs isn't fully covered by your insurance. You're trying to raise $250,000 to cover the copay and post-op care. You're currently at $4,200. I had my team do a background check this morning." Amelia felt violated. He had dug into her life. "You had no right." "I had every right. I'm about to trust you with secrets worth billions," he said. He walked to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a checkbook. He wrote on it, tore it out, and slid it across the marble desk. It was a cashier's check, made out to NYU Langone Transplant Fund, FBO, Leo Kelly. The amount was $500,000. Amelia's legs gave out. She grabbed the chair to steady herself. She couldn't breathe. That was everything. That was Leo's life. "That's your signing bonus," Bainbridge said, his voice flat. It's in an escrow account. The hospital will be notified today. If you take this job, the funds are released. Whether you find the mole or not. Leo gets his surgery. That's the deal. Amelia looked at the check, then at the man. He had just bought her. He knew the $1 tip was an insult, but he had just found her real price, and he had met it without flinching. She felt a wave of self-loathing, quickly replaced by a fierce, desperate relief. Leo would be safe. And what do I have to do? She asked, her voice a whisper. You'll report directly to me. You'll be given a corporate apartment, a new wardrobe. You are, for all intents and purposes, my right hand. The two main suspects are my head of operations, Philip Donnelly, and my senior legal counsel, Beatrice Shaw. One of them is destroying me. You will find out which one. He held out his hand. Do we have a deal, Ms. Kelly? Amelia looked at the check. She thought of Leo's labored breathing. She thought of the $1 tip. She was making a deal with the devil, but the devil was offering her brother a future. She put her small, trembling hand into his. We have a deal, Mr. Bainbridge. Good, he said, his grip firm. Your new life starts now. A car is waiting for you downstairs. It will take you to your new apartment. Be back here, ready to work, at 7 a.m. tomorrow. The next 24 hours were a blur. The car was a black Mercedes S-Class. The corporate apartment was a sprawling, sterile, clean condo on the 50th floor of a building overlooking the Hudson River. The new wardrobe was a prepaid credit card with an absurd limit and strict instructions from Bainbridge's assistant-at-large. Buy suits, pencil skirts, silk blouses, and new shoes. Nothing that makes you look like, well, you. Amelia bought the clothes, but they felt like a costume. The shoes didn't burn her feet, but they pinched in a new, more expensive way. When she walked into the 65th floor at 6:50 a.m., she looked the part, but she felt like an imposter. The floor was quiet. A woman with a perfectly coiffed silver bob sat at a desk that looked like a piece of modern art. You must be Amelia Kelly, the woman said, her voice crisp. I am Beatrice Shaw. I handle Mr. Bainbridge's legal portfolio. I'm helping with your transition while we find you a permanent assistant. A terrible business. What happened to your predecessor? Amelia's heart leapt. This was one of the suspects, Beatrice Shaw. She looked to be in her late 50s, impeccably dressed, with a kind, grandmotherly smile that was completely at odds with Bainbridge's suspicion. What did happen to her? Amelia asked, trying to sound casual. A breakdown, Beatrice said, lowering her voice. The pressure here is immense. Mr. Bainbridge is a brilliant man, but he is demanding. She was taken to a private facility upstate. Amelia felt a chill. Was that true, or was that what happened to people who failed him? Just then, a man bustled out of a nearby office, a tablet in one hand and a styrofoam cup of coffee in the other. He was handsome, in a slick 30-something way, with a salesman's smile. And you must be the new face, he boomed, sticking out his hand. Philip Donnelly, head of operations. Welcome to the Shark Tank. Don't let Beatrice scare you. Her bite is worse than her bark. Beatrice sniffed. Philip, you're in early. Another deal going south? Aren't they all? Philip winked at Amelia. The boss is inside. He's in a mood, so good luck. If you need anything at all, my office is right there. We assistants have to stick together. He presented himself as an ally, but Amelia remembered Bainbridge's words. One of them is destroying me. Thank you, Mr. Donnelly, Amelia said. Philip, please, he insisted, before disappearing into his office. Amelia took a deep breath and walked to the large doors of Bainbridge's office. He's on a call, Beatrice said, not looking up from her computer. You can wait. Amelia stood by her new desk, a station just outside his door. She could hear his voice, muffled but intense. Not an option. The board of Astratech will reject the offer if they know we're short on liquid. I want to know who leaked it, and I want them gone. Find them, Philip. A moment later, Philip shot out of his office, his face pale, and hurried to the elevator. The intercom on Amelia's desk buzzed. Get in here. Amelia entered. Bainbridge was pacing, his suit jacket off, his tie loosened. Philip is an idiot, he snapped. He chases his own tail. Did you see him? He just left. He looked upset, Amelia said. He's upset because our latest private offer to Astra's CEO was leaked to the press not 10 minutes ago. It makes us look desperate. It tanks our negotiating position." He stopped pacing and pointed at her. "Your job. You're my new assistant. You will organize my calendar. You will screen my calls. You will sit in on my meetings. And you will be my shadow." He handed her a flash drive. "This is the complete file on the Astra Tech acquisition. Everything. Our financials, our psychological profiles of their board members, our maximum offer. Only 4 people have access to this drive. Me, you, Philip, and Beatrice. Your predecessor allegedly lost her copy before her breakdown. This is now yours. Guard it with your life." Amelia's hand closed around the small piece of metal. It felt as heavy as a bomb. "Your first task," he said, "is to arrange a dinner. Tonight, a private room at Per Se. A real, hyper-exclusive restaurant. Just me and the CEO of Astra Tech, Mr. Lawson. It is off the books. No one knows. No emails, no digital trail, just a phone call. Use the private line on your desk. Get it done." "Yes, sir," Amelia said. She spent the day in a haze. She was a quick study. She learned the complex phone system. She deflected calls from aggressive journalists. She organized his chaotic schedule, but all the while she was watching. She watched Beatrice Shaw. The woman was the picture of efficiency. She was formal, polite, and kept to herself. She ate a simple salad at her desk for lunch. She seemed normal, almost boring. She watched Philip Donnelly. He was the opposite. He was a social butterfly, constantly out of his office, glad-handing other executives, laughing too loudly. He stopped by Amelia's desk 3 times. "How are you holding up?" he asked, leaning on her desk. "He's a nightmare, isn't he? Don't worry. The first week is the worst. After that, you just go numb." He smiled, but his eyes were restless. At 3:00 p.m., Amelia was organizing Bainbridge's travel receipts when Philip came by again. "Hey, I have to run a hard copy of a sensitive file over to our external auditors at Deloitte," he said, holding a large sealed envelope. "But I'm double booked. Could you be a doll and run this downstairs for their courier? It's urgent." "Oh, of course," Amelia said, eager to be helpful. "You're a lifesaver," he said, flashing his perfect smile. He handed her the envelope. She took it to the mailroom on the 30th floor. But as she handed it to the clerk, she hesitated. Bainbridge said Philip was an idiot, not a traitor. But, on her way back to the elevator, she passed a small executive-only copy room. On a sudden, crazy impulse, she ducked inside. The room was empty. Her heart was pounding. This was it. This was espionage. She looked at the sealed envelope. It was addressed to Deloitte. She held it up to the light. It was thick. This is a test. It has to be. She thought about the flash drive in her pocket. She thought about Bainbridge's words, "Find the leak." With trembling fingers, she carefully steamed the envelope open over a small kettle used for tea. She pulled out the contents. It wasn't an audit report. It was a single sheet of paper with a phone number and a time. 8:00 p.m. tonight. And underneath it was a printout of a reservation. A reservation for a private room at Per Se, for 2. Amelia's blood turned to ice. She had made the reservation on a private line, just as Bainbridge had asked. She hadn't emailed it. She hadn't told anyone. Except, Philip had been at her desk, charming her, distracting her, right when she was on the phone. He must have overheard. He wasn't sending this to Deloitte. He was sending it to the rival Astra Tech. He was sabotaging the secret meeting. Philip Donnelly was the mole. Amelia's hand shook as she carefully resealed the envelope. Her mind was racing. She had to tell Bainbridge. She had caught him. She had done it. She hurried back to the 65th floor. As she stepped out of the elevator, she saw Philip standing by Beatrice's desk, laughing about something. He saw Amelia and gave her a bright, casual wave. "All set?" he asked. "Yes, the courier has it," Amelia said, her voice sounding surprisingly steady. "You're a star, thanks," he said, and sauntered back into his office. Amelia looked at Beatrice. The older woman was watching Philip with an expression Amelia couldn't quite read. It wasn't friendly. It looked almost like pity. Amelia walked straight to Bainbridge's door and knocked. "What?" his voice barked. She entered. He was on his laptop. "Sir, I need to show you something. In private." He looked up, intrigued by her tone. "Go on." I intercepted a package from Philip. He said it was for Deloitte. It wasn't. Her voice trembled as she explained what she'd found. The note, the reservation for per se. He must have overheard me on the phone. He's leaking the meeting. He's the mole. Amelia expected Bainbridge to explode, to slam his fist on the desk, to call security. Instead, he just stared at her. His face was blank. He leaned back in his chair. "And you steamed the envelope open," he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I'm sorry if I overstepped, but Amelia, he said, cutting her off. He stood up and walked to the window. "Philip is not the mole." Amelia's stomach dropped. "What?" "But the reservation. Philip is an ambitious, stupid and greedy man," Bainbridge said, his back to her. "He is leaking information. But he's leaking small things. Insider trading tips to his college buddies, expense report fraud. He's a parasite, not a viper. The leak I'm worried about, the one that's sinking the AstraTech deal, that's big. That's strategic. Philip doesn't have the brains for it." "Then, the reservation." Amelia was confused. "A test, for you." Amelia stepped back, stunned. You set me up. You knew he'd ask me." "I knew he was sloppy. I knew he'd use you. I wanted to see what you would do. Would you be a good little assistant and just run the errand? Or would you be the person I hired? The person who isn't afraid to look closer?" He turned. "You passed, barely. Steaming an envelope is amateur but effective." Amelia was furious. "This is a game to you. My life, my brother. This is just a game. This is not a game," he roared, his voice suddenly volcanic. "This is my company, my life, and it is being torn apart by a traitor. You want to talk about games? The mole is playing a game with me, and I'm losing." He calmed himself, straightening his tie. "Philip is a distraction. I will deal with him. He's not our target. Our target is smarter. Our target is Beatrice." "Beatrice?" Amelia was shocked. "But she's so quiet. She's professional. She's been with me for 15 years, Bainbridge said, his voice dropping to a low growl. "She was my father's assistant before me. She's loyal to a fault. She's family. Which is why she's the perfect suspect. She has access to everything, everything. The passwords, the private accounts, the offshore holdings. If she's the leak, she could ruin me completely." "But why would she?" "That's what you need to find out," he said. "This isn't about overhearing phone calls anymore, Amelia. This is deeper. I need definitive proof. Something that connects her to AstraTech." Amelia's new job became a sickening obsession. She worked late, long after Philip had gone home to his high-priced apartment. It was just her, Bainbridge, and Beatrice. Beatrice was always the last to leave. Amelia watched her. She observed her every move. Beatrice was meticulous. She shredded every document. She logged off her computer every time she stood up. She was a fortress. But Amelia was a waitress. She knew how to watch. She noticed that every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m., Beatrice would take a personal call in the hallway, on her cell phone, not her office line. She would speak in a low, soothing voice, often checking to see if anyone was watching. Amelia also noticed the medical bills. While sorting mail, Amelia saw a letter from a private clinic, the Ashford Neurological Centre. It was addressed to Beatrice. Amelia's mind flashed. Her predecessor. A breakdown. A private facility upstate. Bainbridge was wrong. Beatrice wasn't a traitor. She was helping the old assistant. Amelia decided to follow a new lead. She started digging into Beatrice's financials. It felt like a horrible violation, but she used the access Bainbridge had given her. She found Beatrice's bank statements. There were no massive, unexplained deposits. There was no slush fund from AstraTech. Instead, there were withdrawals, huge ones, tens of thousands of dollars every single week, wired to the Ashford Neurological Centre. Beatrice was paying for the former assistant's care. She was bleeding her own retirement fund dry to help a colleague. This wasn't a woman betraying the company. This was a woman holding it together. Amelia felt sick. Bainbridge was wrong. He was paranoid. He was destroying his most loyal employee. She kept digging, desperate to find something, anything, to prove Beatrice's innocence. And then she found it. It wasn't a bank transfer. It was a visitor log. Bainbridge had his own private investigative team tracking his suspects. Amelia, as his shadow, now had access to their reports. She opened the file on Beatrice. The PI had followed her, not just to the clinic, but to a small, unassuming coffee shop in Brooklyn every Sunday. Beatrice would sit and wait, and at 10:00 a.m. she would be joined by a man. Amelia clicked on the grainy photo. He was handsome. He was smiling. It was Mr. Lawson, the CEO of Astratech. Amelia's blood froze. The PI report was clear. Subjects meet weekly. Intimate, non-professional behavior observed. Beatrice wasn't just a mole. She was romantically involved with their biggest rival. She was feeding him everything. Amelia printed the report. This was it. The definitive proof. This would destroy Beatrice. This would save Bainbridge. This was what she was paid for. She walked to his office, the papers feeling like a death sentence in her hand. "Sir," she said, her voice hollow, "I found it. You were right about Beatrice." Bainbridge didn't look triumphant. He looked old. He took the report from Amelia's hand and stared at the grainy photos of Beatrice and Lawson, laughing over coffee. 15 years, he whispered. She was at my father's funeral. She held my hand. He looked up at Amelia, his eyes dead. "Thank you, Amelia. You've done what I asked. Your brother's fund is secure. You can go home. I'll handle this." "What? What will you do?" Amelia asked, dreading the answer. "I will do what's necessary," he said, his voice hardening. "I will call security. I will have her escorted from the building. I will file a lawsuit that will take everything she has. And then, I will crush Astratech, using this as leverage. Lawson will have to resign. Their board will be in chaos. We'll buy the company for pennies on the dollar." He was going to ruin them. Both of them. "Sir, Graham," Amelia said, using his first name for the first time. He flinched. She was paying for your old assistant's medical care. Out of her own pocket. Does that not count for anything?" "It counts as stupidity," Bainbridge snapped. "It counts as her being a fool, a sentimental fool who fell for a rival and betrayed this family. This company. Get out, Amelia. You're done here." Amelia turned and walked out. She sat at her new, expensive desk. She looked at her new, expensive computer. She had done it. She had saved the company. She had earned her blood money. Leo was safe, so why did she feel like she was the one who had just been destroyed? She thought about the $1 tip. She thought about her speech. "I won't be insulted." She looked at the report on her desk and then at Beatrice, who was on the phone, her voice calm and professional. This was an insult. This entire setup. Using her, a desperate woman, to destroy another woman who was, perhaps, just lonely. Amelia couldn't do it. She couldn't be the person who handed him the weapon. She stood up. She walked back into Graham's office. He was on the phone, his back to her. "Get security to the 65th floor, now," he was saying. "No," Amelia said. Graham spun around. "What did you say?" "I said no. You're not going to do this." "I am not asking you, Amelia. I am telling you. You are an employee. You will leave." "You hired me because I told you no once before," Amelia said, her voice shaking but finding its power. "You're doing it again. You're wrong, Graham. You're so wrapped up in your world of vipers and sharks that you can't see a human being." "She is a traitor," he roared. "Is she?" Amelia shouted back, a fire she didn't know she possessed erupting. "Or is she a lonely woman who's worked for you for 15 years, watching you treat everyone like a tool to be used or discarded? Did you ever once ask her about her life? Did you thank her for paying for your old assistant's medical care, something you should have done? That is not your concern." "It is. You hired me to find a leak. But what if the ship is sinking because the captain is the one drilling holes in the bottom?" Bainbridge was stunned into silence. No one had ever spoken to him this way. Not here. "What did you just say?" "You're the leak," Amelia said, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. "It's not Beatrice. It's not Philip. It's you." He stared at her. His face went from red to a deathly pale. "Explain," he whispered. "Philip is sloppy. He leaks small things. Beatrice is in love. Maybe she told Lawson things. But the big leaks, the strategic ones, the ones that perfectly anticipate your every move, the ones that always make you look like a desperate victim." Amelia's mind was racing, putting the pieces together. The leaked offer that made him look weak, the lost file, the constant manufactured chaos. "You're sabotaging your own deal," Amelia said, her voice full of dawning horror. "Why? To drive the price of Astratech down?" "No, that's too simple." She looked at him. The man who had everything. The man who was paranoid, who trusted no one. "It's a test," she whispered. "The $1 tip, Philip's envelope, this whole job. It was all a test. But it wasn't a test for me. It was for them." Graham didn't move. He was a statue. "You wanted to be leaked. You've been feeding different false information to Philip and Beatrice for months, waiting for one of them to take the bait. You leaked the per se reservation yourself, knowing Philip would try to steal it. You knew Beatrice was seeing Lawson. You've been testing their loyalty. You've been trying to find a reason to fire them." "Stop," he said, his voice quiet. "Why?" Amelia pressed, walking closer. "Because you're paranoid? Because you can't trust anyone?" "Stop," he yelled, and he swept his arm across his marble desk, sending the monitor crashing to the floor. The glass shattered. The office was silent, save for his ragged breathing. "My father," he said, his voice a broken rasp. "He built this company. His partner, his best friend, a man I called uncle, betrayed him, stole everything. My father died a broken man. I was 20. I rebuilt this. I rebuilt it on one principle. Trust. No one. Ever." Amelia finally understood. The $1 tip, the fake job, the paranoia. It was all a fortress, built by a deeply broken man. "Beatrice," he continued, "she was my father's assistant. She was there when it happened. She's the last link to him. And I've been waiting for her to betray me too. I needed to prove she was like him." "And Lawson?" Amelia asked gently. I introduced them," Graham confessed, "at a charity gala. I thought he'd be the one to turn her. I set a trap. For 15 years I've been waiting. And you were just my tool to spring it." The intercom buzzed. "Sir, security is here." It was Beatrice's voice. Graham looked at the door, then at Amelia. His whole shark persona had collapsed. He was just a man, trapped in his own prison. "What do I do?" he whispered. Amelia looked at the man who had insulted her, then hired her, then used her. She should have hated him, but all she felt was a profound, aching pity. "You want to know what a person with integrity does, Graham," Amelia said. "They don't set traps. They don't test the people who love them. They trust. It's time for you to stop being a shark and start being a human." She walked to the door and opened it. Beatrice was standing there, flanked by 2 large security guards. "Ma'am?" Mr. Bainbridge asked. One of the guards started. "It's all right, gentlemen," Amelia said, with a calm she didn't know she had. "Mr. Bainbridge made a mistake. There's been a misunderstanding. You can go." The guards looked at Beatrice, then at Amelia, then at the broken monitor on the floor. Beatrice looked at Graham. "Sir, are you all right?" Graham Bainbridge, the shark of Silicon Alley, looked at his assistant of 15 years. He saw the genuine concern in her eyes, the loyalty he had tried so hard to break. He nodded, unable to speak. Beatrice dismissed the guards. She looked at Amelia. "Ms. Kelly, thank you." "Beatrice," Amelia said, "I think Mr. Bainbridge has something he needs to discuss with you. In private." Amelia walked out of the office, past Philip, who looked terrified, and out to the elevator. She had no job. She had no plan. But for the first time in her life, she felt powerful. She had her dignity. Amelia didn't go back to the corporate apartment. She went home, to her tiny walk-up. She expected to feel terrified. She had just walked away from $500,000. She had just insulted one of the most powerful men in the world. She packed her few belongings into a suitcase. She was going to go to the hospital, sit with Leo, and figure out how to start over. Maybe in another city. As she was zipping the bag, there was a knock on her door. Her heart stopped. It was Bainbridge's security. They were here to take back the money. She opened the door. It was Graham Bainbridge. He was standing in her dingy hallway, looking completely out of place in his $1,000 suit. "Amelia," he said. He wasn't holding a lawsuit. He was holding a small potted orchid. "I came to apologize," he said, sounding as if the word was foreign to him. Amelia just stared. "What I did to you, to Beatrice, It was monstrous. I've been living in a prison of my own making for 20 years. And you tiny, stubborn, infuriatingly brave woman, you just walked in and tore it all down. What about Beatrice? Amelia asked. I told her, he said, everything, about my father, about the tests, about Lawson. She listened. And then she told me that she's known about my tests for years. She just ignored them. Because she'd made a promise to my father to look after me, and she's not in love with Lawson. She's been feeding him false information to protect me. She's been playing him this whole time, on her own. Amelia laughed, a real, genuine laugh. So she was your shark all along. She was, he said, a small smile playing on his lips. She also told me I'm a paranoid fool and that I'm taking a 6-week mandatory sabbatical. Starting now, she's in charge. He held out the orchid. This is a terrible apology, I know. It's a start, Amelia said, taking it. The money, he said, for Leo. It's yours. It was never contingent on you finding a mole. It was my deposit, my investment in someone with integrity. I can't accept it, Graham. It's not right, Amelia said. Don't be a fool, he said, his old sharpness returning. It's not for you, it's for him. Take the money, let your brother get well, but it comes with a condition. Amelia sighed. What? The money for Leo is a gift, but I have a second proposal, a job, a real one. When I get back from my sabbatical, I'm starting a new division, the Bainbridge Foundation, a philanthropic fund. I'm going to put $5 billion into it. He looked her square in the eye. I am a man who is very, very good at making money. But I am a terrible human being. I don't know how to give it away. I don't know who to trust. But I trust you. You're the only person I've ever met who I couldn't buy. I want you to run it. Amelia was speechless. You want me to run a $5 billion foundation? I want you to take all that fire, all that dignity, all that anger you had on the sidewalk, and I want you to use it to do some good. No more games, no more tests, just work. What do you say? Amelia looked at the man. He was still a shark, but he was a shark who wanted to learn how to swim in a new ocean, and he was offering her a chance to build a better world. 6 months later, Amelia stood in the bright, sunny atrium of the brand-new Kelly Center for Pediatric Care at NYU Langone. Beside her, Leo, looking healthy and breathing easy, was cutting a large red ribbon. Reporters snapped photos. Amelia, in a sharp, professional suit that was no longer a costume, scanned the crowd. In the back she saw him, Graham Bainbridge, looking relaxed, standing next to a smiling Beatrice. He wasn't on the cover of Forbes today, he was just a guest. He caught Amelia's eye and nodded, a nod of respect. Amelia turned back to the crowd and stepped up to the podium. She was no longer a waitress, she was no longer invisible. She was the director of one of the most powerful foundations in the country. She tapped the microphone, her hand steady. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice clear and strong. It all started with an investment. Not an investment in a building or a stock, but in a simple human principle that everyone, no matter who they are, deserves dignity. Amelia's story teaches us that true value isn't measured in dollars, whether it's a $200 check or a $1 tip. It's measured in integrity. She was willing to lose everything for her dignity, and in the end, she gained the power to change the world. She didn't just change her own life, she changed Graham's, and she'll change the lives of thousands of children. What did you think of Amelia's incredible reaction? Was Graham's test a cruel game or a necessary evil to find one good person? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If this story moved you, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to be reminded of the power of integrity. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story of karma, twists, and real-life drama.